Kyle Jack, tenacious, bold, and consistent are three words that come to mind when you meet this social savior, who against all odds has proven that when the heart is set on a course, nothing can stop it. An American-born school teacher, motivated by a desire to make a difference and improve the Makoko people's way of life, set out from the United States in August 2023 to live among the Makoko people of Nigeria, West Africa. The mission of Love Foundation's aim is to provide passionate care for the poor. Therefore, we were immediately drawn to Kyle and his work with the Makoko people of Lagos, Nigeria. Kyle agreed to an interview where he shared a large portion of his life and stories with us. Come with us.
Hi there, welcome to our YouTube channel. My name is Omorege Blessing and this is the Missions of Love Foundation. Today we have such an interesting story we'd like to talk to you about, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. In case you're yet to get subscribed on our YouTube channel, please like this video, share, comment, and also hit the notification bell so that you get notification each time we churn out our videos. We have such an interesting story about a man called Kyle Jack, who left the United States of America to come to Nigeria in Makoko community to present or to give social amenities to those who are just living in Makoko. So let's dive right into the video, and I'm sure you have a good time with us.
Yes, my name's Jack Kyle, and I'm from the United States of America in the middle state, Kansas. So I'm very used to lots of flat land and grain crops and agriculture. So that's my background. And I've been a school teacher in some form of ministry for most of my life. The kinds of school teaching I do is science. My degree is in education of science, and my master's in technology of education, and my doctorate work is in social emotional learning, which has to do with how people process their emotions in regard to how they learn. So if they have an anger issue, how does that affect their learning? And how do you process that anger through forgiveness and release that anger so that you can not be a hindrance to learn? So that's my background. In ministry, I've worked a lot with aquaculture. I've taught students in middle school, high school. I've taught previously incarcerated people. I've taught homeless people how to grow fish and plants using science and disciples of science to grow food. And I think that's it. In high school, I read a book about a guy by the name of C.T. Studd, who was a famous sportsman in England. And he was also wealthy. And the Lord Jesus came into his heart, and he felt called to go and share with people that God loves them. And he sold everything he had and gave up his fame and became a missionary in China, the Congo, and India. And that book really affected me. And since high school, I wanted to go into missions. But I got busy raising my family and career. And so I was pretty depressed a year or two ago when I realized that my life is kind of at the end stages and I never made it to the mission field. And I was really depressed, and it in fact made a crisis in my life because I'd always planned to go, and now I'm 60. But I was looking on YouTube and I ran across a video about Makoko, which is in Nigeria. And Makoko is a lot like Venice in that the people have built their houses over the water. But it's unlike Venice in that the water is polluted by the second largest city in Africa. So all the wastewater from Lagos drains into the lagoon right where these people are living in Makoko. The people of Makoko are not considered Nigerians, but foreigners, even though they've lived there for 100 years, because they came from the outside and couldn't find a place to live, so they began to build on the water, and they're fishermen. So as I watched this video, I saw these children swimming in the polluted water. And that really, that also affected me. I thought that maybe I could help with my knowledge of aquaculture to, in some way, help clean the water, or at least prove that it could be done. And so I began to do research and found that there was a missionary that had come to Makoko 13 years ago. And he had made a lot of friends, and those friends then embraced me, particularly Prince Taiwu. And Prince Taiwu and I began to talk, and that opened the door for me to come to Makoko when I thought my chances of ever doing anything mission-minded was over. I think that, I went straight from the airport to Makoko, and I don't think a lot of people in Makoko had been around very many white people. I know they've seen them because white people take tours through Makoko, and a lot of, not just white, but a lot of people take tours through Makoko. But I was one of the few that came and stayed. And the kids just swarmed me and loved me. And we would sing the ABCs. And being a school teacher, that's just kind of natural for me to connect with education and kids. So, and then the adults, they watched me from a distance and then got to know me. I think that as I began to swim in the lagoon and out further where it's the water's cleaner, I think people began to trust me and just got used to me being there. When I first got there was a lot of call outs to me, like, "Hey, white guy, here, look here." And towards the end, nobody even seemed to notice me as much. So, but it was kind of a progression of things. Yeah, that is a tricky one. I think there was a lot of different feelings about that. While that was my lifelong dream, that wasn't their lifelong dream for me. So, and what they read on the internet about Nigeria, they thought it was a dangerous proposition for me, and so that was hard. They didn't. My kids didn't want me to go. It was my impression, and but my wife, she knows me, and she knew my vision of missions, so she was supportive. Although I don't think that was her vision either of how my 60s. But one of the things I do in my 60s. So you just live through it, and here in the next few days, I'll be heading home, Lord willing, and we'll figure out the rest of our lives next. I used to teach environmental science, which looks at how we can live in harmony with the environment God gave us. He said in Genesis that we are the good stewards of the earth. And I think that issue really comes into stark view with Makoko. The water is extremely polluted. The water reminds me, and rightly so, it reminds me of the first stages of the sewage plant, where the water from raw sewage just goes into the first holding tank. And that first holding tank is called anaerobic breakdown of the biomatter, and it just means there's no oxygen in the water. And that is what the water's like at the very heart of Makoko. And they're living right on top of it, and they're running canoes and boats over the water. And many of the kids just jump in and swim just like it's regular water. The air above, and I checked this out with the University of Lagos, the air is also polluted. So the pollution is coming from smoking the fish, which is one of the few incomes that fishermen have. Is they can take wood and have grass huts, and they can load that grass hut with wood and smoke that hut up, and have the fish in there on racks. But that has a price to the quality of the air that they have. Without smoking fish, they would have pretty good quality air because they've got a nice sea breeze that comes in. But they are living over sewage that needs to be treated, and they're breathing smoked air that according to the University of Lagos is contributing to all kinds of health problems, and that smoke is drifting back into Lagos, so Lagos also gets the smoke. So those are two environmental issues. If you add in mosquitoes and malaria, it's pretty dire. With that said, the people are resilient and positive and hardworking and industrious. It's amazing to me how well their lives are going. Their churches almost, it just seemed like every other block there was a church there. And so they're worshiping, they're finding ways to find the meaning of life without those qualities of clean water. And they're hauling in their water to drink and wash. I don't know if that helps. I don't know if that answers the question, but there are some big challenges in Makoko. But I just might add that all of those issues can be resolved, and not with a lot of money either, because the next stage of a sewage plant is aerobic digestion, and that just simply means pump oxygen in the water, and that will begin the breaking down of those biological waste products. So I really believe that one of the things that Makoko could do is have pond aerators every so often and begin to process that water on into clean water. It's just getting stuck right there. The tide does help it a little bit, and there are solutions to the air problem. There are solutions, and the solutions aren't that expensive, but it takes a little bit of energy from outside to get that rolling. So that's what I learned. Yeah, I think that's the classic Christian dilemma and answer. That when you consider that God would come from heaven to earth And you'd say, how in the world, if you're going to, Jesus Christ, if you're going to show up, die, come up from the grave, and then return back to heaven, once you return back to heaven, how is it that any of the things you did are going to make a lasting impact? And that's also the brilliance of what Jesus did. Is he said, basically with his actions, he said, I'm going to return to heaven, but I'm going to leave my spirit of love with you. And that spirit of love is catchy, and you can't stop it. So in going to Makoko, there was a number of times I thought, this isn't going to work unless somebody stays here and makes this thing happen. But then I just had to remember that that's not how the kingdom works. The kingdom is lighting a fire of love. Somehow God's miracle causes another person to see it, and somehow they catch on, and it catches on to the next person and the next person, and it grows somehow. And if that doesn't happen, then you can say you tried. My theme among them was to love your neighbor as yourself. This is summed up in loving God with everything and your neighbor as yourself, which is pretty amazing that all the 1,000+ commands in the Bible can be all reduced into love. But as I was there working with the Makoko people, I really began to believe that verse myself, that to love your neighbor as yourself really is the economic solution on planet Earth. That to love another person, to care about them, really does benefit self. That's not why we're loving the other person. We're loving the other person because God set in motion love in our hearts. But that if we do that, I think that solves poverty issues. It begins to solve the ecology issues with nature. If I care about the water I'm living over, I won't pollute it, because it will not only affect my neighbor, but it will affect me. That love really does change the world to a better place. The problem with that verse is that it's been said so many times that I don't think people really consider it as something really, really, really important. It's just one of those verses you memorize and you say it in religious situations. But having lived with people who are very poor and being a part of their lives, I really saw that how loving your neighbor could change it all. Which is, I'd never seen that before. I didn't think it practically worked, but I'm convinced it practically works. And if you use the secular terms of cooperatives, a cooperative is really loving your neighbor as yourself set in motion. And if you make it a Christian cooperative, then that gives us some real power. But if you couple the power of a cooperative with the power of entrepreneurship, where people are getting their own ideas and their own independent, self-sufficient drive, not a selfish thing, but just the joy of inventing something or producing something, a good quality product, and hiring someone to help you. If you put a cooperative, the power of a cooperative with a person's individual freedom to start a business, if you couple those together with the Christian message of love, I really think you can bust apart poverty. I'd love to see it happen. And when I go back, I'm going to work on that. I don't know with who. I don't know anybody that wants to work on it, but I'm going to work on it. This all came about just by watching YouTube, and so I have no organization. I looked into a few mission agencies, but it just never worked out. So this came out of a relationship with the missionary who connected me with Prince Taiwu. And then I did email all my friends. And when I got sick, I would send out an email to all my friends and say, pray for me. Or if I had an issue, I'd say, pray for me. And I could really feel their prayers. So I don't know how I could have done it without my friends, but I didn't have an agency to work with. Oh yeah. So anybody that wants to work with me, I'm all ears. Yeah, I just at this point in my mind, I don't really have any kinds of stipulations or anything. I just, if you want to love your neighbor and if you want to work with me on it, let's do it together. Yeah. And I wouldn't do this again without someone coming with me. There were 2 times I got sick, and I got really sick, and I felt like I was going to die. And it would have been really nice to have someone with me that came with me that could pray with me and knew me from where I came from, have that connection. You go to a brand new place and kind of lose some sense of where you've been and what you've come from and what your goal is, especially when you get sick. And also I just miss my wife. We were high school sweethearts, so that's 38 years together. And that's married. We were already together 4 years dating in high school. So that part is really hard. But nobody would come with me. So, and I knew if I didn't go, I didn't believe I would ever go. I had an idea of what poverty was, but I didn't really know until I experienced it, having been in it, and just how desperate many people are just for $1. And I didn't appreciate that because I hadn't lived it. My parents and my grandparents had, but I never had. And that's a heartbreaker. Actually, the first night I got here, Prince Taiwu put me in a hotel close to Makoko, and then I was going to go in the next morning. And I woke up and I was very thirsty, and there's something wrong with my medicine. And I got up and I went down to the it was one of those times I thought I was going to die. I think it was maybe 3 times I thought I was going to die. The first night I was here, I thought I was going to die because my meds seemed off. And I went down to the courtyard of the hotel, and I saw probably a 9-year-old kid with a big tub of water on his head that had to weigh more than him. And he was carrying that tub of water down the street, and I was dying of thirst, and because of my medicines. And on his way back, he was getting water in the morning. I guess that was his job. Hauled this water back and forth on the street. He on his way back to fill his water tub up again, I asked him if I could buy a bottle of water for him. He'd get me a bottle of water. And he finally understood what I was saying, and I gave him, I think I gave him a US dollar, and because that's all I had in my pocket. And I remember just how absolutely happy and thrilled he was with it. And that really caused me to understand how different a world I was in. I mean, in the US, a child under 16 can't even have a job without breaking child labor laws. It's against the law. And many children in the US, if I gave them $1, they go, oh yeah, stick it in their pocket and run off or whatever, but it wouldn't mean anything. And so that, that's kind of a long story, but that was one of my first impressions of just how tough it is for people here. And that was sad. I'm not saying that was sad, I'm saying I felt sad. So I'm not making any judgment on it, I'm just saying that's how I felt. The people of Nigeria have been industrious. They work really hard. I've seen a lot of kindness. The other day I fell flat on my face on the ground. And I remember people coming up to me and saying sorry. And that made me feel good that they cared enough to come over and, tell me sorry. Very kind, very hardworking, industrious. I don't know if I would be able to persevere like they do. I think I might give up. As hard as I see them work for as much as they get in return. So I'm probably a coward in comparison to what I saw. That is probably the biggest thing that I did, because I did learn a lot of things and I proved a lot of things to myself. But whether or not someone will take off with the work that I did, I really don't know. I hope so, and I'm going to work to see if that happens. But the thing that I think was the greatest achievement that the Lord did through my coming was gave Taiwo the idea of building a house and then us using part of the house for people to come and stay. And so while I was there, I was able to help finish the house and put solar electricity in it so it has power. And people can come and they can run their electronics, or I think it even run a refrigerator at this point. So I mean, it could really be a place for people to camp out and stay and work for a couple of weeks. And I think there's somebody already signed up to come for 2 weeks in December. You might check in on them. So that is exciting to me because maybe what happened is I was able to help put a bridge hedge there where people can come and stay and bring their ideas, new energy. And over time, maybe more and more people will come and interact with the Makoko people. They are very isolated. And I think they're a little bit of their isolation. I don't know if they're afraid of the outside world, but I don't know if there's a real trust there. And I think that as Christians would come in and stay, contribute, and then more come in, that they can see that there are people in the world who care and are going to show up. They might not give their whole life to their community, but show up, contribute, and move on. Ultimately, what happens in Makoko and in Nigeria is people have to take the ownership for their problems, and they have to deal with it. It can't be outsiders coming and fixing it for them. So maybe that little house will be a place where people who do care can come, provide energy, provide resources, and then go back to their lives. The next person comes in. That's the vision. So, and it looks like it's going to happen. So, I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah. So, God really made a wonderful thing in plants, and a lot of people don't understand that plants are the cleaner of the earth. It takes the waste from the animals and the waste from both our lungs and our body, and it changes that into food for us to eat. And so plants don't get enough respect, in my opinion. And that's really one of the inspirations of going to Makoko, is that I knew the water was basically sewage, but that plants take that sewage and could convert it to food. And so that's what I did, is I took the water from the Makoko lagoon, and it's fresh water at this time of year, and put it into a tank, and we put fish in the tank, Atlantic cod. And then we pumped that water from that tank into tubes that went back and forth, and then we had plants growing out of those tubes, out of the holes in the sides of the tubes that we drilled. And we had tomatoes and cucumber, there was a pepper plant, and then just various green plants, because there's so little green in Makoko. It's just all gray. And we ran that water through the system for about 4 days, and then the fourth day, that water was just crystal clear and bubbly and effervescent. Those plants just rolled out all of the waste in the water and converted it through sunlight and into food. So that was one of my main thesis in going, is that yes, Makoko could be clean, because you could run those tubes along the bases of all the houses there. And so all the houses could have skirtings of tomatoes and plants. You can go down the canals and just see plants growing everywhere, cleaning the water as it's growing. And so that's my vision of the future for Makoko, is to begin cleaning the water in several different ways. And plants also take what we breathe out, which is carbon dioxide, which is poison to us, and changes it back to oxygen. So not only does it clean our water, but it cleans our air. So it would also be helpful to the air quality of Makoko to have plants growing. And I had visions of, having these tubes on top of the houses, growing plants on the houses and on the walls. And so I'm really happy that I proved that yes, it can work.
Thank you for watching the video today. I'm sure you have been blessed by that interesting story. If you're yet to get subscribed on our YouTube channel, please get subscribed, hit the notification bell so that you get notified each time we have a new video. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful weekend. Bye-bye.